The line has to be drawn here. This far and no further.
Hey everyone, Mikey here, and welcome to another video, where today I'm going to be going over my Darkside build on this year's anniversary ship, the Jarok Alliance Carrier. And yes, I have decided to go to the dark side and do a lazy boat. I will say this ship is fantastic. It is probably the second or third best free ship we have ever gotten in game, with the Tamir obviously being number one. And I would say it would be a very close race between this ship and the Bajoran Interceptor as the second best. Overall, this ship probably does out edge it because the ship itself is quite good, quite versatile, and the console is really good. The trait, however, yeah. But I currently have the Emerald Chain Vanity Shield, which looks so good on it. It's my favorite of all the ones I've played with so far. You know, the ship designers, you did such a great job with this. It looks so much better than I ever expected. A perfect blend of Federation and Romulan design aesthetics, where you got, you know, the wings and the big old booty, but then you have the saucer. Yeah, just hats off to the designers and everyone who worked on this ship. Very well done. As I said, I've decided to go to the dark side and do a turret build, or as it's more commonly referred to, a lazy boat. I did it just because why the hell not? I haven't done one, and yeah, this ship pretty much to me is a good fit. It's slow, it turns, it's hard to turn, and anytime you can get, you know, full 360 firing arcs on a ship that's very hard to maneuver, it's just a bigger bonus. And because I want to do something a little different again, you know, instead of keep doing the standard side torps, because there's a lot of torps out there and not enough love for Darkside. I've gone with the Viridian turrets. A couple of reasons. One, they are the best looking weapon visuals in the game. They just look amazing. Two, I had a bunch already, and I really didn't feel like trying to get my hands on other style turrets, because for some reason turrets are getting more and more expensive on the exchange. And right now, Viridian Plasma there's a big supply of them. And I kind of wanted to keep this build to be kind of budget friendly, a little more mid tier than end tier. So that's why another reason I've gone with them. Because I'm on my science tune, they're all rolled to crit D times 4, damage crit D, because science and engineering tunes need the extra help with the crit D. Where if you're on a tactical tune, you would roll these to damage times 4. For the deflector, going with the Gamma reputation, because it has a crap ton of control and EPG. And the Gamma impulse engines, again, more EPG on it. The two-piece doesn't help a lot, but again, this ship does need some help with turn rate, so any little bit will help. But that, for me personally on this build, that's just a secondary effect. For the warp core, going with the temporal defense and the temporal shield. Again, this is for the two-piece, for the extra damage for all the DOTs. So in this case, it would be the gravity well mainly, but it's just, again, it's pretty much meta for science, and because it's all reputation, it's fairly easy to get a hold of. Standard devices that you've seen on countless builds all over the place. You know, Deuterium Surplus, Exarchal Particle Flood, Kobayashi Maru, Reactive Armor, and Red Matter Capacitor. Console-wise, you know, you have to use the Lorecator, even though I'm not using the full two-piece, but, you know, the extra crit chance, you still got to have it. And the extra weapon power setting, because this is a Darkside, and the majority of my power is going to be put into Ox, any little bit extra power into the weapons is beneficial. I'm using the retrofitted assimilator to boost the EPG and the control. The Cascading Subatomic Disruptions console, which comes from the Mirror Strike Wing. Yes, currently at time of recording, this is a lockbox ship. However, that ship is going in to a bundle in the C store, so that's why I've put it on this build. Everyone's going to have their own opinion on what is budget and what is not. Personally, my definition of budget-friendly builds are no lockbox traits or consoles, no promo chip items, and a couple of lobby items, just because lobby, some people will buy boxes and get lobby, and some of the lobby items you can get on the exchange with grinding. This is a fantastic console for science builds, does a lot of damage, it gives damage resistance rating, and it boosts EPG. Using the board cutting beam, mainly because when you activate universal consoles, it increases the damage. So that's a very good one to have on a clicky console heavy build, which this build is. The sensors suspension burst, which is the console that comes off of this ship, and this console is fantastic. I cannot say enough good things about this console, especially for carrier builds. You know, the passives with the extra crit chance is always beneficial. Extra auxiliary power, again, extremely beneficial for science ships and science abilities. But the clicky, to yourself and your allies, 20% critical chance. That is insane. But what's even more insane is to all hangar pets and your summons, 30% crit chance for 20 seconds. That is just ridiculously high. And when you pair it up with especially these fighters, oh man, and you will see in the parse explanation at the end of the video just how good these fighters are. Also using the exotic particle field exciter, the crafted one, which is, I will be honest, a pain in the ass to craft. You need to be very lucky. It took me about at least 60 or 70 tries before I got one. A exotic particle focuser from your fleet holding. Again, more EPG and more control. The Delphic Terror Generator. Again, another pretty much meta science console, another standard science console. Extra severity, the extra Cat 2 bonus damage to EPG, as well as the radiation damage and debuff. The Tholian web spinner array, probably the best EPG console in the game. For those of you who did get this during the event, it is outstanding and you better be using it. To those who unfortunately missed the event or were not able to obtain it, this is definitely a console that if and when it does go into the MUD store, I highly, highly recommend you buy this. Using the Neutronic Eddy Generator, this comes from the Summer Horizon ship, I believe the weather ship from a couple of years ago. Again, another item that if and when that goes into the MUD store is something else I do recommend you consider getting if you're going to be doing the science builds. High energy communications network. This comes from your support carriers, so it's a C store console, so pretty easy to obtain. I'm using it because this is a pet build. Boosts, gives you the extra rank to your pets, and also puts a debuff on all enemies. So good overall console to have. And the one lobby console I'm using, and again, this is pretty much a meta science console, is the Plasma Storm module, which comes from the Maquis Raider. The Maquis Raider was also put into MUDs a while back, so it is a little bit easier to obtain, as well as you can usually pick up the Maquis Raider on the exchange for an okay amount of EC. Will take some grinding, but it's not that far out of reach as like a lockbox ship would be, for example. And the hangar, yes, using the Alliance fighter squadrons, these things are so ridiculously good. I am usually not a fan of carriers and pets in general, but these pets have definitely changed my attitude. And considering that they have Focus Assault 3 and it is now stacking, yeah, these are so good. These fighters are going to be, you're going to see these fighters more and more as people start unlocking the ship. Skills, again, standard meta for science, temp op primary, intelligence secondary. So for personal traits, I will admit some of them are a little more expensive than others, but you can get them all from packs on the exchange, so they're not as hard to obtain. So the first one I'm using is Feel the Weight of Our Presence, which for every friendly ship on the map, it puts a bit of a debuff on the enemies. Unfortunately, hangar pets don't count, but a team of 5, you're still going to get a little bit of damage resistance debuff. Subnucleonic Transfer. This is a science captain trait. So every time you use your subnuke, it knocks out their power levels even more and increases yours. So that's always good, especially for a Darkside. Extra power is extremely helpful. Intelligence Agent Attaché. Again, standard meta, pretty much every build. Criticals, restore captain abilities. This is a must-have trait for pretty much everything. Fragment of AI Tech to boost my control, because that plus 50 control is too good to pass up. And because it's Darkside, getting extra damage on the weapons. It's a Cat 1, so it's not that big, but it's still helpful. Invasive control programming, which is mainly used on the support sides, but it has a chance to disable subsystems when using control abilities. And because this is how this build is put together, there's a lot of them, so this has a very high chance of proccing. Psychological Warfare. It boosts the controllability effectiveness, so very good to have on science. Probably the most expensive trait on here is the Boimler effect. You have to have this on your builds. This is the cooldown reduction, plain and simple. You gotta have this. If you have the Lobby, and especially on the Lobby sale, get it. If not, grind the EC and get it. This is another must-have trait, because cooldown reduction is key. Unconventional systems. Again, this is another must-have trait. With all the clickies I have on this build and all the Yukon procs, you will see that my clickies are almost constantly up. And that's where the vast majority of damage is going to be coming from. Superior Astrophysicist from your Fleet K-13. Just a little bit of extra EPG drain. Always helpful. And Particle Manipulator, which this you get when you hit level 15 in your Science R&D. The extra crit chance for exotic abilities and crit severity, which Yeah, very good and very noticeable. Starship traits pretty much are all going to be fairly easy to obtain. Uh, First one is Electrified Anomalies. This is from the Rise in Weather ship, an event ship from a couple of years ago. Very good overall science trait. Does a little bit extra electrical damage and increases everyone's power levels. Spore Infused Anomalies. Again, this is a C-Store trait, very easy to get your hands on. Activating science or intel bridge officer abilities causes your anomalies to spit out bursts of spores and does electrical damage. I was not happy on how this has been performing on this build, so I would probably also recommend maybe Synthetic Good Fortune instead. Exotic Modulation, which this comes from the Kronos Temporal Dreadnought, another C-Store ship. Anytime using temporal operative abilities, you get a decent boost to EPG, and it's a Cat 2. And I have 3 temporal abilities, so again, this is pretty much up almost constantly. Improved Gravity Well from the Alliance Pilot Escorts, the Science variant. Increases gravity well time, reduces the charge, and the primary target gets a debuff. Very good science trait, and it's also a good trait to use in certain circumstances when building your tank. Leisurely Pace. This came from the Ryzen Cruiser from this year's summer event. Very underrated trait in my opinion, because when you're at low throttle, you get a actually big boost to EPG and control. So this is a very underrated trait in my opinion, and I use it on almost all of my science builds. And because this is a carrier with extremely good pets, I am using Superior Area Denial. As I say when I was talking about the console, yes, as of recording, this is a lockbox trait, but it will be a C-Store trait in the very near future. It is a trait that is highly coveted, and if you have the ability to obtain that bundle when it is released, I very, very recommend you do. It is just really too good to pass up. That debuff and the extra fire at will and scatter volley at the same time to your pets, yeah. So for stations, you can probably tell it is set up as a almost normal science, but with an absolute ridiculous amount of Yukon procs. I have a total of 9, which is just, yeah. So for the temporal, Heisenberg amplifier, very quick recharge time. Chronometric conversion field. Again, they're both Yukon procs. Timeline collapse. It is a very, very good ability. I pretty much almost always use it on my temporal seats. For the tactical, Chemosite Lace Weapon Wii, pretty much a must-have for the extra radiation and debuff. Because it's a lazy boat, scatter volley. Unfortunately, because of how limited the seating is on this ship, I can only get Scatter Volley 1, but because the majority of the damage of this build is going to be coming from your consoles anyways, it's not a big deal. Emergency Powered Auxiliary, again, pretty much standard for science builds. Extra power, extra damage, plain and simple. Unstable Warp Bubble, again, Yukon proc, and has a chance to disable. Eject Warp Plasma, only because it's a Yukon proc. The ability itself is not that good. Again, science, all Yukon procs, Tractor Beam, Scramble Sensors, Photonic Shockwave, Gravity Well 3 because it is a control build and this is your primary control, and it's a Yukon proc. And of course, Jam Targeting Sensors. So yeah, 9 Yukon procs, ridiculous. Lots of shenanigans with this build. And for duty officers, I am using one of the ones from the new lockbox that has a small chance to proc a higher level of the firing mode. Still on the fence if this is actually going to be worth using or not. It does require more testing. Technician to boost EPG damage when using emergency power to aux. Pretty much standard EPG. Using this guy as something different because I didn't want to put any Borg officers on this build, and in all honesty, I don't have that many on this tune. So when using your sensor scan, it decreases the enemy's outgoing damage. Always helpful. Your standard gravity well officer to get the aftershocks. Your gravity well officer to knock off the target's engines. Always good to have. And again, another random one that you probably don't see too much. A chance to recharge photonic shockwave. Not overly helpful, but again, a little more friendly towards the wallet. So that is the builds. Again, I love this ship. It's not going to set any records, that's for sure. That's, the Verne is still going to be the top science ship overall. But when it comes to carriers, this is probably going to be the best carrier in the game, in my opinion. And it has the best pets and the best console. And it just looks the best. Plain and simple. So we'll go to the ISE, and then we'll see you later for the parse explanation.
We must assume
Oh, fuck. This is an elite.
Oh,
Yes.
fuck.
Oh, god damn it.
Just you pull the grumpy.
See, somebody's using those pets.
Yep. Yeah, this is a science lazy build.
That seemed a lot better.
That felt a lot better for me, yeah.
Especially with those that 240% of focused assault 3 on it.
Mm-hmm.
And those boar were just loving all over me. I was getting all kinds of tractor beams from them.
Ooh.
94, yeah.
140K.
How'd your parse look?
294.
Nice.
294, nice.
It's better than the last run. Of course, that's probably because of the Alliance pets.
That was Bob's DPS.
So that just goes to show what I've been saying, that the Alliance pets, they're going to be fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, they are. What was my tanking like in there?
You did 97% damage in, 96 attacks in.
Holy shit, hell yeah.
Miracle worker.
Yep. Good job, JB.
Damn, that's stew level tanking right there.
Yep. I was hoping for a little more DPS than that, but I'll take it. Hey everyone, and welcome to the parse explanation. I was on Hannah, which is my science tune, and this build did a respectable 288k DPS. I will be honest, it wasn't as high as I was hoping, but then again, considering this group and the fact that I scaled back on traits and consoles, I am quite happy with it. Big shout out to JB, one of his best tanking runs in a long time. Always a pleasure having you around tanking, JB. I was, of course, controlling. Stu was in one of his theme builds, so check out that video when he puts it out in the very near future. Of course, our good friend Grumpy, who was streaming and was so kind to let us interrupt his stream to do this run. He was on his KDF recruit, Bob, which did 340k, and that was an upload for him, so good job, Grumpy. And Big Papa Tart was the high DPS on this run. Good job, man. So looking at the individual, not a surprise that on this build pets were the highest DPS. And again, these Alliance fighters are just so damn good. 61, almost 62k just from the fighters. That is insane. I just sincerely hope that they don't get nerfed. But these are turning out to be the best fighters in the game right now. Timeline collapse, just under 16, pretty normal. The Badlands Cyclone, which is the Plasma Storm, did 12k. Again, not surprising. Neutronic Eddy, 7k, a little lower than normal, but eh. Chronometric Conversion Field, 8k, like it's pretty much standard on your EPG control builds. Borg Generator did 3,800. It's you're not using that console for its damage, you're using it for its passive. Chain Web Projection, again, one of the best EPG consoles in the game at, came in at just under 57k, so very impressive. Very good console. If you do have it, I strongly urge you to use it on your science builds. Cascading Subatomic Disruptions. Yeah, try saying that 3 times fast. Did 22k, not too bad, with the single high hit of 533, which for me is pretty good. I know this console can crit for over 1 million. I have seen it on other people's builds. So it is an excellent EPG console, and I'm so glad it's going to be an account unlock very soon. Gravity Well did its usual. And here we go. So the first weapon, the 6 turrets under Scatter Volley 1 did 14k. That's respectable, especially considering that this is a Deuce Psi, so most of my power is in the auxiliary. And then you're looking down here, the Scatter Volley 2, yeah, only 300. So yeah, I only got probably, I'm going to say, 1 proc off of that Emerald Chain Duty Officer. So in very quick runs with high-end groups, or even mid-tier groups, I would say that Doff really isn't worth it. But probably for solo play or like extended missions or maybe longer TFOs, it probably will be worth slotting. But again, it's not something I would say will become meta. Everything else is just pretty much normal. Spore Infused only did 7k. I have replaced that, so we will see how that does, but because it's only the one anomaly with the Gravity Well, the Spore Infused is just, it's not as good. But it's still worth slotting if you have it, because it is a C-store trait. Then Entropic Rider, only 5k, again, a little disappointing, but it is what it is. So that was the build and the parse. As I said, it was a little lower than I was hoping and expecting, but nonetheless, a very solid ship, very solid build. And because this is an event ship and it is free, it is definitely worth getting. It checks so many of the right boxes. Yes, it has its downsides and its issues, but for a free ship, it is extremely good and very solid. Also, I just want to say, for those of you who might not know, I recently started streaming on Twitch. I plan on streaming at least once, maybe twice a week. I'll put the link below. So I really appreciate if everyone would go over there and drop me a follow. And please do, the normal YouTube things, comment, like, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. I'm getting very close to 100 subs. I really want to get to that point very soon. So hopefully with everyone's help, I'll be able to get there. So thank you once again, everyone, for watching and all the support you have given me. And until the next video, bye-bye for now.